The patrons have spoken, and this time they want Kabutops. This fierce-looking Pokemon has been a fan favorite ever since players made the trek to Cinnabar Island to finally have their dome fossil turned into a Pokemon back in the Gen 1 games. Praise Helix. It was also terrifying in the classic Indigo League episode Attack of the Prehistoric Pokemon, which is also the same episode Charizard debuted in. Finally, fans of Pokemon Mystery Dungeon 2 will remember Kabutops as a minor villain, but packing a memorably chilling entrance that scared anyone who came across it. Today we'll see if Kabutops was as fearsome in the competitive scene as it was in the cave Pokemon days, so we ask, how good was Kabutops actually? And in this video we'll be going over these competitive formats. Unfortunately, Gen 1 OU is made up of a very exclusive group of Pokemon, mostly normals and psychics. Kabutops' low HP and special stats meant it was not good against the latter category, and normals usually hit Kabutops super effectively, meaning it couldn't check them at all. Plus, it couldn't really switch into Hyper Beam and punish the assailant, since it didn't hurt Snorlax and Tauros too badly. Its lack of a physical stab move also held it back from using its meaty attack stat to the fullest, as did the inability to hit the rock-weak metagame constituents Lapras, Cloyster, and Zapdos. Though Kabutops did have some coveted moves that, alongside its decent attack and speed, could potentially turn the tables on the rather insular metagame. It was one of the few Pokemon to learn Swords Dance, which catapulted the power of its Hyper Beam to severely threatening levels, especially since the most common resists to the move, Rhydon and Golem, were one-hit KO'd by Kabutops' Surf. This also applied to Kabutops' other notable move, the Auto Crit Slash, which it used to dish out immediate damage as well as posing a severe threat to the common reflex sets on tier mainstays Chansey and Snorlax. Unfortunately, it couldn't use Swords Dance to boost Slash's power into the stratosphere, because thanks to Gen 1 mechanics, critical hits ignore its user's own boosts, meaning Crit Slash does the same damage with or without a boost. Kabutops' main issue was competition in the form of Kingler, who was considered the best Swords Dance user in OU and also packed the Stab Water move for a one-hit KO on the rocks. Kingler basically just did what Kabutops did but better, boasting several huge advantages that translated to better concrete results in battle. The most notable one was Kingler's significantly more powerful attack stat, which was hugely important in scoring game-breaking KOs that Kabutops came up short on. Most notably, Kingler always KO'd Chansey with Hyper Beam after a dance, unlike Kabutops' unreliable 56% chance to do the same. Kingler also had a roughly 30% chance to one-hit KO Starmie with a boosted beam, while Kabutops maxed out at 95%. Kingler's Water Stab, the auto-hit Crabhammer, also had the incredibly useful trait of 3-hit KOing full health Snorlax 87% of the time, a feat Kabutops' Slash can never accomplish. And finally, Kingler's lack of an Earthquake weakness was highly useful against all of Snorlax, Tauros, Rhydon, and Golem, allowing it to switch into battle far more easily than Kabutops could. Kingler itself was niche to begin with, but it was worth using, and definitely far better than Kabutops. And when you're outclassed by a niche Pokemon, you're definitely not going to be seeing usage in OU. Thus, Kabutops dropped to UU, but unfortunately, Kingler being niche meant it was also UU, meaning Kabutops was still outclassed there. So, Kabutops' debut generation was a rough one for the sword-slinging slasher. Unfortunately, Gen 2 Kabutops was still unusable in OU, but this time it wasn't potentially somewhat useful only to be outclassed by Kingler. They were both just plain bad, unable to switch into anything or pose a significant offensive threat even after a boost, much less without one. Kabutops gaining Rock Stab with Ancient Power didn't do much with the move's terrible base power and PP. It didn't even 2-hit KO Zapdos, which alongside Exeggutor and Gengar made Kabutops worthless against offensive teams, while Stall stuffed it with Raikou, Skarmory, and Suicune. However, this time around, Kabutops was absolutely terrific in UU. Ancient Power's low base power wasn't as much of an issue against a significantly less bulky metagame. It was faster than much of the tier, including the tier's best Pokemon, Nidoqueen, making it a terrific Pokemon to have in offense-on-offense slugfests, especially since faster Pokemon like Scyther and Electabuzz couldn't easily switch in and reclaim momentum. Against bulkier teams, Kabutops could Swords Dance easily, given the amount of Pokemon they carried that couldn't hurt it too much, and blow by them. It could even switch up its coverage to mess with its checks. The standard was Hidden Power Ground to make sure Magneton was never a problem, but Hidden Power Bug smashed Blossom and really powered through Slowbro, while Giga Drain blew Quagsire away. Plus, HP Ground was important and common enough to where it had to be respected as a possibility until Kabutops was confirmed to not have it, which was not often. This meant that even if Kabutops didn't have HP Ground, no one would try to initially check it with Magneton, and as such, it would still be useful. Kabutops was also not without its its defensive use. Its ability to fend off Dodrio was incredibly valuable given how difficult the bird was to wall, and it was one of the few Pokemon in the tier that were capable of threatening Grand Bull. Overall, GSC UU Kabutops was a top tier Pokemon, up there with the best in the metagame. Gen 3 OU finally saw legitimate use for Kabutops, who now finally had the move it'd been aching for the first 2 generations, Rock Slide. It was incredibly niche, but it had fearsome sweeping potential against weakened teams. When holding a Select and running a moveset of Swords Dance, Rock Slide, Endure, and Flail, it could easily rip teams apart. It was able to grab a Swords Dance boost against common choice band attacks like Double Edge, Hidden Power Flying, Hidden Power Bug, and even Rock Slide before turning the tables on a faster Pokemon like Zapdos. Endure would activate its Select Berry and allow Kabutops to outrun the entire metagame, which invalidated outspeeding it with fast Pokemon like Dugtrio as a method of dealing with it, and thus running over offensive teams while giving it a maximum power Flail that crushed the water and ground types of the tier that normally stood in the way of the tier's more common physical sweeping rock types like Tyranitar and Aerodactyl. OU's ever-present Sandstorm holds back most Endure Pokemon like Heracross and Blaziken, but Kabutops' rock typing meant it had no such woes. A brave player could even potentially grab a second Swords Dance with Kabutops, since it could easily live most of the tier's non-banded earthquakes, most notably Swamperts, and could grab the extra boost, which allowed it to muscle through Pokemon like Swampert that would otherwise survive. And it was especially effective at making sure Salamence's Intimidate didn't prevent it from sweeping. Flail's sheer power somewhat made up for Kabutops' lack of earthquakes coverage against steel types, as even Metagross and Jirachi took hefty chunks. Kabutops needed key Pokemon like Tyranitar and the aforementioned Metagross weaken before it came out to finish the job, but this wasn't too tall a task given how much action those Pokemon saw in every single battle, especially since Kabutops was only usable on heavy physical offense teams that specialized in destroying Skarmory. Snorlax was a mainstay on these teams, was often switched into by Tyranitar or Metagross, and could easily run Earthquake or Focus Punch to give them a nasty surprise. Snorlax's ability to bait in and blow up Celebi with Self-Destruct was also highly beneficial to Kabutops' sweeping efforts, so there was a lot of synergy there. Of course, as threatening as Kabutops was if things went its way, which wasn't too unrealistic, it was an incredibly high-risk Pokemon that took a very specific team and the full exercising of one's metagame knowledge and battle skill to use effectively. This, in addition to it not being useful defensively and only usable once it was time to go for the boom or bust sweep, is why it was nearly never seen in OU and fell to the tier below. However, have no fear. One player famously quipped, quote, "Kabutops is a threat in UU matches," end quote. And that summation is as accurate as it is succinct. The lack of Sandstorm meant Endure Select Berry users were more common, and as such there was more priority in the tier to thwart these Pokemon. But Kabutops didn't need to be at 1 HP to be effective. Of course, it could definitely run the same set as it would in OU and be quite effective, but it had more options than just that set. It was effective at opening a gaping hole in opposing teams with just a Swords Dance. Given its solid speed advantage over the bulky Pokemon of the tier, it would then proceed to cleave through, such as Hypno and Blastoise, and faster Pokemon like Scyther and Electabuzz's reluctance to switch in. Stab Surf, allowing it to blow past Gligar, was also a unique, incredibly effective trait, as Gligar was an incredibly tough wall to break through. Surf was also more powerful than Hidden Power Ground by a significant amount against Aggron if Kabutops hadn't gotten a Swords Dance. Kabutops could also effectively use Choice Band to adopt a hit and run approach, which allowed it to dish out tons of damage immediately without needing to swallow a hit from defensive Pokemon, while 2-hit KOing them like the Swords Dance set would. This was especially useful as it meant Kabutops could actually use its good defense stat and nice resistances to normal and flying to switch into battle more easily without having to worry about staying out of Gligar Earthquake or Blastoise Surf range. Being able to stave off dangerous attacks like Fearo's Drill Peck and Kangaskhan's Return was incredibly useful for any UU team, especially as the lack of Swords Dance on Kabutops' Choice Band moveset freed it up to use Brick Break, so Kangaskhan would be severely punished for deciding to stay in for an extra hit, thinking Kabutops couldn't hurt it too badly. Overall, Gen 3 Kabutops was once more a top tier Pokemon in UU, one of the most dangerous offensive threats in the tier, and this time around it even had a niche in OU. The new physical special split in Generation 4 meant Kabutops could finally use Water Stab off its excellent attack stat. This, alongside Swift Swim, made it a fixture on OU rain teams, which were rare for how risky and high maintenance they were, but there was nearly no more terrifying a sight than Kabutops in rain. It was nigh unwallable, as boosts from rain and the new Life Orb meant common physical walls like Swampert and Skarmory got absolutely run over. Kabutops even gained priority in Aqua Jet, and this was incredibly useful for making sure Mach Punch Infernape couldn't revenge revenge kill in Rain. The ability to slam Scarf Tyranitar, who would otherwise revenge kill thanks to Sandstream deactivating Kabutops' speed boost, was also a useful tool the other Swift Swimmers did not have. Kabutops was absolutely on par with Kingdra in terms of being a major threat in Rain. Perhaps even more so because it didn't have a true wall like Kingdra did with Blissey, but unlike Kingdra, its use in OU was entirely tethered to dedicated Rain teams, and as threatening as these teams were, they were also difficult to use and win with consistently, thanks to constantly having to deal with Sandstorm, as well as threatening Pokemon like Zapdos and Jirachi. Thus, Kabutops dropped to UU, where Rain was one of the most dominant strategies in the tier, and Kabutops was one of the main reasons why. It had little trouble slicing through most of UU's frail offensive teams, with Aqua Jet dashing any attempts to revenge kill it from Blaziken's Vacuum Wave or Scarf Rotom, while most balanced teams couldn't keep up with it either, as Stone Edge crushed the popular Milotic Venusaur duel, and Weezing and Registeel simply couldn't withstand the sheer power of Kabutops' rain-fueled onslaught. Outlasting Rain was also far easier said than done. The lack of automatic weather to interfere with the rain meant the rain setters could easily run Damp Rock for an extended assault. There were a few Pokemon that naturally gave it trouble, such as Toxicroak, Poliwrath, and Quagsire, but Kabutops could simply opt for Return over Aqua Jet and crush them. If Toxicroak went down, it was almost certainly game over, as Toxicroak was often a team's most important anti-rain weapon. Return wouldn't KO Poliwrath or Quagsire, but nor would they KO Kabutops, and these two going down meant the Qwilfish ready to take over from Kabutops was going to have an easy time, similarly to how the sheer power of Kabutops' Life Orb Stone Edge left Slowbro, Tangrowth, and Leafeon in a similar predicament. Therein lies the power of Rain. Even if one could stand up to one Swift Swimmer, it was often by the skin of their teeth, and that meant easy pickings for the next one. It was such a powerful team style that at one point many of UU's best players clamored for a Damp Rock ban, which never took off but served to illustrate just how powerful the Swift Swim assault led by Kabutops was. Kabutops was even the main reason why when Hail teams had a brief spurt of popularity, they weren't as much of a stop to Rain as they might seem. Neither Snover nor Walrein wanted anything to do with Kabutops' mighty Stone Edge. But unlike in OU, Kabutops wasn't a one-trick pony dependent on Rain to succeed. It was a fine lead capable of starting offensive teams on the right foot, getting rocks up, keeping the opponent's rocks off, and denting something in the process. It had a great matchup against a ton of common leads, being able to safely set up Stealth Rock against most of them, including Uxie, Mesprit, Amistar, Arcanine, and Scyther, while being able to deny Stealth Rock from those who could set it up, as they couldn't both KO tops and get rocks up. And thanks to Kabutops' speed advantage over them, it could also dent them with Stone Edge before letting itself get taken out. Lumberry let it deal with Uxie's Yawn and Arcanine's Will-O-Wisp. This was a tremendous way to set up its teammates to start wreaking havoc, as despite being down 5-6, the opposing lead would have been dented before being forced out by Kabutops' teammate following it up, meaning it would be difficult to make use of later in the game, and Kabutops' teammate would then be in prime position to cause heavy damage with the Switch-ins being forced to deal with Stealth Rock, while it and its teammates did not. This made Kabutops a terrific way of providing the enormously dangerous but Stealth Rock weak Scyther and Moltres with ideal conditions to start wreaking havoc. Preventing Kabutops' Stealth Rock by taunting it with Ambipom was not a risk worth taking, as Kabutops threatened to take it out easily with the combination of Stone Edge and Aqua Jet, which meant the Ambipom user would be down 6-5 without having even damaged Kabutops beyond Fake Out, meaning Kabutops was generally free to go for rocks. Threatening to one-hit KO Kabutops with Moltres' HP Grass was also not viable, as Kabutops could easily run Focus Sash as its item and take the bird out, meaning it could again get rocks up, as risking Moltres was not worth it. A non-sash Kabutops wouldn't even stay in. Kabutops' non-rain utility wasn't restricted to the lead slot either. It could run an excellent support set that came in mid-game against slow walls like Chansey and Registeel, or against the bevy of fire types in UU, whose stab it packed a useful quadruple resistance to, and then do what needed to be done depending on what the situation called for. This was usually pulling off a crucial rapid spin, which Kabutops was excellent at, thanks to Stone Edge crushing the tier's Ghost in Rotom, Mismagius, and Spiritomb with Aqua Jet to finish the former two off if they managed to live, as well as preventing Dugtrio from picking it off. Aqua Jet allowing it to check fires was also amazing utility given the frailty of the offensive teams Kabutops resided on, and how dangerous Moltres and Houndoom were. These teams also enjoyed Kabutops being able to turn the tables if the opponent brought rain. Kabutops didn't use Swords Dance, as that didn't contribute anything to its Stealth Rock clearing responsibility, and instead used Low Kick to mess Registeel up, while Lumberry shrugged off Thunder Wave, meaning Kabutops could actually threaten Registeel's Stealth Rock. Lum was also crucial for Spiritomb's Will-O-Wisp, the latter being especially important as it meant Spiritomb couldn't check it even if it came in on spin. It got the job done reliably, and that's what was needed. Kabutops was an absolutely amazing Pokemon in Gen 4 UU, mostly known for being the scariest swift swimmer on those terrifying rain teams, but also a terrific Pokemon with highly valuable traits on any kind of offensive team. Lastly, it must be mentioned that Rain Kabutops was so powerful that it was even feared in Ubers. Of course, it helped that its rain was both permanent and being set up by the king of the tier, Kyogre, but it speaks volumes to how scary Kabutops was when it was used, despite contributing nothing defensively, unlike its main competition, Kingdra, which had a lucrative quadruple resistance for Kyogre's stab. Kabutops wasn't as prominent as Kingdra, but it had several desirable offensive qualities that made it well worth using, and a crucial cog in the functioning of certain teams. Its powerful low kick crushed Dialga, which was usually a massive thorn in the side of rain teams. Abusing rain on the physical side also meant Blissey would be no obstacle at all. Kabutops' vicious Stone Edge stung Kyogre incredibly hard, ripped through the seemingly unkillable Lugia, and was a much better tool to mow through Palkia and the Lati twins than the drawback-laden Draco Meteor and Outrage. It was even powerful enough to break through Giratina Origin, allowing Kabutops to pull off Rapid Spin, which was otherwise incredibly difficult in Ubers. Overall, Kabutops was a threat and a half in all three of the main Gen 4 tiers, being synonymous with rain abuse, rivaling even the mighty Kingdra. When Gen 5's Dream World released Drizzle Politoed into OU, Kabutops was of course at the forefront of teams abusing rain to the fullest. The incredibly popular Ferrothorn was adept at handling most rain threats such as Kingdra, but Kabutops was having none of that, using low kick to utterly destroy it. Its powerful secondary stab and Stone Edge allowed it to drop other popular rain checks like Rotom Wash and Jellicent too. The risky prediction reliant maneuver of resetting the weather with Tyranitar as Kabutops grabbed the Swords Dance wasn't too effective, as the opponent would still have to sacrifice something to Kabutops before even forcing it out. Even if Kabutops didn't sweep on its own, it'd leave easy pickings for the rest of its teammates. Dealing with Kingdra was already hard enough without Kabutops slamming the few checks to it before Kingdra even came out. As such, it was a major catalyst behind Drizzle and Swift Swim eventually being banned from being used on the same team. And unfortunately, that spelled the end of Kabutops' OU stint. However, its time in the tier was pretty much as dominating as it could be. Unfortunately, Kabutops could no longer keep up with UU. The tier was now too bulky and too strong for manual rain to be a reliable strategy, and Kabutops' support sets weren't anything special either. Thus, it dropped to the new RU upon the creation of the tier, and right from the beginning, it established itself as one of the best, most important Pokemon around, a distinction it would maintain throughout the generation. Its ability to rapid spin consistently was incredibly valuable, as Spiritomb and Rotom couldn't stop it. This allowed incredibly dangerous threats such as Moltres to be used reliably, despite the Stealth Rock weakness. Kabutops' quadruple fire weakness was also incredibly key in helping offensive teams stave off the monstrous Choice Band Entei's Flare Blitz. The tier's lack of Registeel meant Kabutops could run Waterfall as its fourth move to blow through the tier's third ghost, Golurk, and be able to threaten Steelix as well. However, if Kabutops didn't mind having to use Aqua Jet to KO it, which wasn't as bad as it sounds given Golurk's propensity for taking heavy damage early in the game when setting up Stealth Rock, Kabutops could also run Swords Dance in that fourth slot to severely threaten defensive teams Alomomola or Slowking, using Lumberry to shrug off Scald Burn, without missing out on anything else besides Steelix, which was not too much of a threat otherwise. Swords Dance was especially useful when Rough Skin Rocky Helmet Druddigon rose in usage to attempt to switch in on Kabutops' spin and set rocks back up. Kabutops could maul it with a +2 Stone Edge and then get the spin off. As such, Swords Dance became the standard. Life Orb was another item Kabutops could valuably run, giving both Stone Edge and Aqua Jet some potentially important extra kick, but some players eventually began to use Rock Gem to make Kabutops as efficient as possible in both spinning and expanding the potential of what it could do, as it was now incredibly difficult to counter in and of itself. Defensive answers, which included all of Druddigon, Alomomola, Slowking, the new Intimidate Quillfish, Tangrowth, Uxie, and even physically defensive Foul Play Spiritomb, were absolute dead meat. Rotom Mow was no longer a one-time switch-in either, and Pokemon that ordinarily wouldn't fear Kabutops' one-on-one, such as Roselia and Escavalier, got absolutely shellacked. Overall, Kabutops was one of the most important faces of Black and White RU from day one, and never falling off. One of the most important Pokemon for offensive teams, being an incredible spinner that was pivotal in enabling dangerous Pokemon, shaping several aspects of the metagame around its ability to do so, and thriving even in the face of tactics meant to counter it. If anyone got too comfortable thinking of it as mere rapid spin support, it would give them a harsh reminder that it was a powerful threat in its own right. Kabutops was also a great pick in Ubers. This this time actually being significantly superior to its rival Kingdra. The presence of Ferrothorn warped the metagame around spikes, with spinning being difficult thanks to the amazing new spin blocker Arceus Ghost. Kabutops of course threatened Ferrothorn greatly with low kick. If it connected, many Pokemon such as Kyogre and the Lati twins became really scary. Kabutops' rain boosted waterfalls also cleaned Arceus, and of course it was faster, meaning it could get that all important spin off. This was pivotal for the functioning of many Pokemon otherwise held back by spikes. For example, the U-turn happy Genesect no longer got worn down for spamming its best attack, and winning Weather Wars was easier when Kyogre wasn't taking damage for switching in, while the opposing Groudon was. Groudon could potentially switch in to change the weather, and Sun would mean Ghost Arceus dominated Kabutops. However, this was prediction reliant, as a good prediction from Kabutops' user would result in a successful spin and Groudon entered the battle, and switching Arceus into a rain boosted waterfall would be giving up a ton of uncontested damage. Kabutops' ability to outspeed and hit common Calm Mind Arceus forms quite hard, not just Ghost, but also fighting Electric and Dark, was quite rare and incredibly valuable in defending against them, leaving them in range to be picked off by Choice Scarf Kyogre or Genesect. Overall, Kabutops was an integral piece of many highly successful Uber Rain teams, and as such was a crucial presence in the metagame as a whole. The power creep brought on by Generation 6 unfortunately knocked Kabutops down another peg, this time to NU, and even more unfortunately, the metagame was not hospitable to its speed, typing, and defenses, making it difficult to get Kabutops in and subsequently accomplish much of note with its traditionally leaning sets. As such, it was a rare sight prior to the discovery of the Scarf Kabutops set. While not the most intuitive Kabutops set, it actually worked quite well. With its newfound speed, careful switching to make use of its resistances, and even surprise factor, it can now switch in and use its still excellent attack stat to threaten many common offensive Pokemon throughout a battle, such as Pyroar, Jynx, and Zangoose, potentially even cleaning up the frailer teams that pack these Pokemon with relative ease in the metagame. It also provided key utility in revenge-killing dangerous setup threats, such as Rock Polish Rhydon, as well as common variants of Rock Polish Golurk, Shell Smash Omastar, and Quiver Dance Lilligant. It wasn't particularly good against defensive teams, of course, but knockoff removing a wall such as Ferroseed or Poliwrath's item could be key, and of course Rapid Spin was always useful to have, even when Scarf. The fast spin could actually pay dividends against faster teams in emergency situations. Gen 6 Kabutops was definitely a significant step down from previous generations, but it managed to adapt and find use in a new, unique way. Kabutops was just about never seen in Gen 6 VGC for lack of a discernible niche in most players' eyes, but it did see one notable placement on Mateo Durrell's Rain team that he used to reach 10th at the UK Nationals. He utilized a Life Orb set with low kick that could take even a super effective hit from Mega Kangaskhan and slam it back while threatening sand teams, and when in rain, pummeling other common Pokemon with the boost to both Waterfall and Kabutops' speed, which crushed Landorus Therian even after Intimidates. This also let it utilize its two stab moves' flinch rate to potentially get out of tight situations. Kabutops wasn't at all a part of the main metagame, but very well done to Mateo for getting results out of a Pokemon nobody else even thought of. Each generation provides power creep that knocks most non-elite Pokemon down, and Kabutops was not exempt from feeling the trickle-down effects of Gen 7's Z moves, finding itself in a lower tier for the third generation in a row. Its Choice Scarf variant from the previous generation allowed it to keep up with the offensive end of the metagame, notably being able to handle Oricorio G, Dodrio, Floatzel, and Aurorus, while of course having nice utility in fast rapid spin to relieve pressure from hazards and knockoff to remove items from walls, such as various leftovers, 50% berries, and Eviolites. Kabutops even got a nice upgrade to its Water Stab in Liquidation. Unfortunately, it wasn't nearly as adept at late game cleaning due to the prominence of Scarf Primate as well as Mach Punch Girder and Hitmonchan, and in general, Scarf Kabutops is a mostly unspectacular Pokemon, but it had its niche. And that's it. So how good was Kabutops actually? Well, it's had varying stints in OU, but ever since Gen 2, it's mostly been known as one of the best Pokemon in whatever lower tier it ended up in. Though it's taken a big hit from the power creep of the two most recent generations, and it's even teamed up with Kyogre on a few occasions to wreak havoc on Ubers. Kabutops has been defined by its unique, powerful assets that having even only one of can make a Pokemon great. Swords Dance, Swift Swim, and Rapid Spin. Power creep has left its mark on its slowly descending tier placement, but Kabutops had done the same on whatever tier it's descended to. Thanks for watching, everyone, and as always, if you liked the video and you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to False Swipe Gaming for more weekly Pokemon content, and in the comments I want to know, what do you think about competitive Kabutops? Do you like it the way it is, or would you want it to make it even more powerful somehow, like being able to function without rain? Whatever it is, let me know in the comments, and thank you so much to the patrons for continued support of our videos and voting for this Pokemon. Their contributions help me so much and I can't thank them enough, but also thank you to everyone else watching as well. And follow my crew on these social media platforms, and that's all I got. See you next time, everyone.